Hello and welcome back to Huddle Up, the show that talks all things football. Thomas Pocrnic and Luca Celebre as always. Luca, draft season's right around the corner. We're in April now, which is crazy how this sort of offseason has kind of flown by, but we're almost there. Excited to get into a lot of NFL draft talk today. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's such an exciting time if you're a fan of the draft process.
Today is going to be all about ranking some of the biggest prospects, and I think what's so interesting about this year is it's all about the quarterbacks and the wide receivers, which, yes, we know they're important positions, but the fact that the first 6 picks could be QB, wide receiver, it feels like a very unique draft in that aspect. So we're going to rank the top 5 quarterbacks and the top 5 wide receivers in each of our opinions. Start off with the quarterbacks, though. The field generals, the signal callers, they get all the attention. Let's hear your list.
Okay, so at number 1, not a shock, Caleb Williams. Number 2's been an interesting spot for a lot of people as the month kind of continues because there have been a lot of names in this spot linked to it. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, but I've got Drake May 2 on my list. 3 is Jaden Daniels, 4 McCarthy, and then 5 Michael Penix Jr. of Washington. Do you have a similar list? What does yours look like?
I feel like it's just becoming a collective list, but we'll get into each quarterback, and we'll start with Caleb Williams because we've known this for so long now that he's going to be the number 1 pick. A lot of people like to say if he even entered last season, he would have been the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. What makes him so special?
I think it's the comparisons as far as just some of the things he does to the Mahomeses of the world, right? And like he gives you the ability to have things muddy and not perfect, and he can still bring your team to wins and hopefully to championships for the Chicago Bears who are drafting him. You just look at the creativity, the stuff he does out of structure is great, the big arm, but I think he's probably underrated as like a guy that knows how to play quarterback as well. Like I think we get enamored by all of the out of structure things he can do, but it's the things that he does as far as processing and the awareness he has in the pocket that make him really, really great and allow those other things to shine.
I think the best way to sort of describe Caleb Williams is if you brought someone into a room and to watch a football game that has never watched the sport, how many snaps would it take them to identify that guy right there is special? And I think the number is probably 1 because he's the closest thing to a physical rocket attached to someone's arm. That's how crazy the arm talent is. He's easily the number 1 quarterback in this draft.
Let's move on to number 2. Drake May is on both of our lists as number 2, but I feel like in the recent weeks and as well leading up to the draft, some people have kind of questioned that and moved him down their boards for guys like Jaden Daniels or even McCarthy. I really like Drake May. What say you? How do you feel about him?
If you ask me who the second best quarterback today is, I would not tell you it's Drake May. I think Jaden Daniels is probably more pro-ready. I like McCarthy, how he can operate on offense and manage the game and utilize the middle of the field. But when I watch Drake May throw, I'm just really I feel like NFL GMs will watch this guy and they'll know that they have something there because the arm talent is definitely there. The athleticism is great. I think Drake May is definitely more of a project. He's very, very raw. There's definitely some concern with the conference and the school that he's coming from and that he played at. But I think when you watch his traits, which is something that players often get drafted for, he checks all the boxes of that modern-day stud NFL quarterback. So Drake May, our number 2 quarterback. Jaden Daniels at number 3. What do we like about him?
We love the ability to throw the deep ball. Obviously, in the NFL, that's the hardest throw to make, and he consistently did it at like an absurd level, and obviously helps to have Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors, 2 receivers that are maybe going to be drafted in the top 10, the top 15 in this year's draft. And we also love the running ability of him. He was just a human highlight reel every time he took off with his legs. I think some of the things that may cause you to concern are the fact that he is a little older and that this development took a lot of time. At Arizona State, this did not happen for him. It happened at LSU late in his college career, happened with some great surroundings. And I think another thing you probably look at is as far as like his creativity and throwing on the run, he doesn't do that a lot. It really is kind of a one read and then scramble type of deal with him. Not that he's not accurate and not that he can't develop into doing that a little more. But I think that if you're picking at number 3, if you're New England, those are the things that might concern you, especially with not a lot of talent around you when you bring him in instantly. Number 4, J.J. McCarthy, probably the most polarizing player of this draft. We both have him at 4, but I think we talked about it. In the right situation, if the Minnesota Vikings go and draft him and Jaden Daniels ends up in New England or Washington, I'd probably feel more confident about J.J. McCarthy working out as opposed to Jaden Daniels working out, just because of the system that he'd be going into. And I think when you watch this guy, you got to watch a lot of film on him or a lot of tape because he didn't pass the ball a whole ton. But you also can't hold that against him as far as looking at some of the context of what he was asked to do at Michigan, because there are a lot of numbers and stats that back up on 3rd and 4th downs, when it was money time, when it was time to convert and move the chains. He did that at a better rate than most of the quarterbacks in this class, and that's important.
Also, 2 of his best games are probably, when you're talking about those, the college football playoff against Alabama and then the national championship. And I thought he really elevated in this. And I think when looking at sort of the story arc of how he's progressed through this draft process, and a lot of people now think that he could be the 2nd overall pick to Washington, he has grown on me a lot as well. He can run a very good offense. Obviously, the concern in Michigan, you probably got one of the best defenses in the nation, the best offensive line, the best running game. You're not going to have that in the NFL, especially when you're a highly touted prospect going to a team that is picking highly for a reason. All these things aren't going to fall into place nicely for you. Why I'm confident that he can still work out is because I think a lot of people underrate his ability to escape the pocket and still deliver a pretty tough throw.
And you love his toughness too. I'm sure GMs love the toughness. Former hockey player.
There you go.
So interesting to note as well. And then our 5th guy, Michael Penix Jr. You could also talk about Bo Nix here. I feel like they've both had very similar careers as far as they're older. They've been in college football for a long time. But I think there are tools that both of them have that you can maybe work with if you're a team looking for a guy late in the 1st round, early in the 2nd round.
Yeah, we both have Michael Penix at number 5. Nice to see another lefty join the NFL. He's going to join, Tua Tagovailoa there. But pure pocket passer. Man, can this guy deliver a fastball. And he's got the numbers to back it up. Put together a really great season. Yes, he had a nice receiving core in Washington, but they were a great storyline all year long, making the national championship. And this was a team that could just, quite frankly, score at will. And that's where I think teams can fall in love with Michael Penix, because, man, can he throw the football. But the worry is sometimes it comes out and it's just, does he only have one type of throw? Is it always the same speed? Can he layer the ball when he needs to, or is it just always going to be a dart, 30 yards down the field? So there's a lot of reasons to like him. There's also reasons why we have some quarterbacks ahead of him.
Absolutely. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the 5 pass catchers that we have in our top 5s. Bit of a differing opinion on these ones, unlike the quarterbacks.